where we're going and how it all fits into
Preview of where we're going.
scheme of things. I'll start from the global perspective. The Episcopal Church of the United States of America is part of the Anglican Communion, which is composed of about 38 independent churches, such as the Church of Canada, the Church of Australia, the Church of New Zealand, the Church of England, the Episcopal Church of the United States of America, the Philippine Independent Church. These are all independent churches, and they're all part of the Anglican Communion. We're part of that group. So when you hear people talk about Anglicans, or they ask you, you'll see some churches in the diocese, and probably the one that we're going to right now probably says on its sign, Anglican. And what that means is that they have a lot of people who attend church or who are probably from the islands. In the former British Islands, dependencies and protectorates and countries that were part of the British Commonwealth, there are about 18 to 20 different churches that are in the islands that are separate churches. We are all part of the Episcopal Church of the United States of America, which has 102 dioceses, and the largest diocese, as far as members, is actually the Diocese of Connecticut. You would think it'd be California or some other place like that, but it's actually the Diocese of Connecticut, which it's also the oldest diocese. The first diocese that had a bishop was Bishop Seabury from the Diocese of Connecticut. We're part of the Diocese of New York, which is all part of the Episcopal Church is broken up into 9 provinces, and we're part of Province 2, which is New York, New Jersey, let's see, the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, the American churches in Europe, and all 8 dioceses that are in the state of New York. There are 8 dioceses in the state of New York, and we're part of the Diocese of New York, which was founded around 1808 as an official diocese, and then the other ones started breaking off after that. In the Diocese of New York, there are 3 regions. There is New York City, which is actually not true. It's not all of New York City. It's just Richmond County, where we're headed now, Manhattan, or New York County, and Bronx, or Bronx County. Queens and Kings counties are actually part of the Diocese of Long Island. And we're heading out to Staten Island. The church we're going to is the second southernmost church in the Diocese of New York. There's only one church below that that's even more southern, and that's St. Stephen's in Tottenville. Also, if you ever grew up there, which I spent a lot of time there, it's known as Forgottenville, or Rottenville.
Where is it?
It is right at the very, very end of Staten Island. It's directly across the water, about a stone's throw from about here to where you see that crane there. That's how close it is to Perth Amboy, New Jersey. It's way down. So if one wanted to go across the Outer Bridge crossing, it'd be about, which is exit 10 on the Jersey Turnpike, it'd be right about the bottom part of Staten Island. You'd still have to go a little bit further south. So we're going to St. Albans in Staten Island. There are 10 churches in Staten Island, and this is one of them. It's one of the oldest. The church itself, the building that we're going to be looking at, was built in 1865. How do I know so much about all this? The reason is because I originally helped to do a lot of the restoration on the church, and was around the time that they did a lot of the restoration. And even went with them to go and buy the organ, which you'll see today, which I think the organ costs $5,000 and $43,000 to restore it, to move it and restore it. They restored every single inch of the organ, including painting all the pipes. So you'll see how the pipes have been painted in the traditional Victorian colors of the day, which are purple and blue and pink and gold. Yes, ma'am.
10 Episcopal churches in Staten Island?
There are 10 Episcopal churches in Staten Island, yes. Hard to believe, huh? Yes. And the oldest Episcopal church in Staten Island, which is also celebrating its 300th anniversary this year, is St. Andrews in Staten Island, in Richmond Town. And in Richmond Town itself, there is a historic preservation that's very much like if you've ever been to Williamsburg on a much smaller scale, or up in Connecticut. What's the one in Mystic, Glad Mystic, Connecticut there? That's very, very similar to that. Sturbridge Village, yeah. And St. Andrews in Staten Island is also the birthplace of Mother Elizabeth Seton, who was originally an Episcopalian and then went on to become a Roman Catholic, the first native-born American saint that was made, who was sainted. There are ones that were older than she that have since been sainted. The person that we're going to be with, Father Schrapplau. His name is Father Schrapplau. He's the rector there, and then we're going to be going from after the service. Today they're having their Sunday school graduation, so there'll be no sermon today, which I told Fred I was very happy about. And he said I wasn't welcome to come back again. So it'll be, I don't know how long the service will be, but I imagine it'll be pretty short given all that. But this parish is a parish in the Anglo-Catholic tradition, so this means that you'll have a bulletin which will be one page, and it'll tell you which page is in the prayer book and in the hymnal that you will look up, the blue book or the red book. It's unlike our service in every way. Although communion's the same. But you'll notice, because they're an Anglo-Catholic parish, that at certain times, especially when the name of Jesus is mentioned, people will either bow their heads, or they'll genuflect, or they'll put their hand on their heart, and bells will ring from the altar, not in their heads. From the altar, especially during, if you've ever been to a pre-Vatican II Latin Mass, this is just like it, except for it's in English. So it just shows you the variety of religious experience within the Episcopal Church itself. And then Father Covington will also be there today. Father Covington was the priest when they did the restoration, and he's coming in from New York City to be with us today to explain everything that was done. And there are still three of the ladies, the original holy strippers, as they were known. And they were called that because they actually spent all the time stripping down all the pews, all the wood in the church, all the windowsills, redoing the floors. They did it themselves. There was a large group of about, I think, 20 to 25, but there's still three of them left, and they comprise the choir of the church, because they went from stripping to singing. And
3 choir members?
3 choir members, that's all the choir has, 3. Nin has a pretty big voice, so she'll probably be singing out. Marge Young is one of the other ones. I forgot who the third one is, but that's what Fred told me the other day. I know a lot of these people very well. They were all part of my social life and my personal life for about 10 years. And great people, really just wonderful people. I think you really enjoyed, you're going to see a whole different cultural side of the Episcopal Church, I can assure you. But very, very good people. And Father Covington then will, after church and after coffee hour or whatever, then we'll gather back in the church and we'll have some time as they're setting up the picnic and all that to have about an hour with Father Covington in the church when he explains, and I'll try to explain all the work that was done both on the inside of the church and the outside. When we drive up and we get there, I'd like you to look at the color of the church, because it's not the color that you would expect for a church to be painted. But that was the original color that was done. What they did color studies to see how many times the church had been painted ever since 1865 when it was actually built. And by looking at all the paint chippings and scrapings, they were able to find out what the original color was, and they took it back to that color. It's sort of like a reddish-brown pink. Kind of hard to explain it until you see it, but you'll understand what I mean when you see it. I don't think anybody's wearing that color today. The closest, Joan Jurgen here in the front is wearing a color that's about as close to that as you can imagine. And so it was actually when we first came to that church back in, well, John went there in 76, I went there in 79. The church was white, just like ours was, and it had aluminum siding, and just like ours does, and it had a different type of roof, just like ours does. So, like I say, they restored every inch of it. And another thing that they did, which was one of the things that we're certainly considering, is they put in a handicapped accessible ramp. And you'll be very interested to see how they did that. They have their front door actually has, it's a walk-through, so you can walk through from one side of the church to the other. So it has two doors actually that come into the church. And their entryway was originally a little library, which then they made into a museum, just like we've done, where I got the idea when we did our restoration work. They originally had carpeting on the floor that took up all the carpeting. They had wood floors. They had windowsills that were painted, and every pew was painted. I can remember that time. The ladies stripped everything they could off the pews. They using zip strip during those days, which is something you put on there, and then you keep on scraping until all the paint comes off. And then a reconstruction place in Tocqueville took all the pews and refinished them to give them whatever anybody else couldn't do, sanded them down. But then the ladies themselves, if I remember correctly, and then will correct me, I'm sure, but they put all the stain and everything on themselves. This was really a sweat equity type of thing, and they were very, very proud of their work. Yeah, Joe wanted to know if the ladies are now in the home for the breathing impaired.
Yeah, exactly.
No, in fact, they're the choir members, so they've improved their voices. What can I tell you?
Coated their throat.
We also redid they have a parish house that was built in the 1960s. One of these, as ugly as you can get parish houses, that was all made of concrete block. And so it's a horrible juxtaposition to see the two together. I think what they really would have liked to have done is torn down the parish hall and started over again, but there was not enough money for that. But the parish hall, since it's very, very large, it's just two big rooms, one on top of another. They rent it out for wedding occasions and all that, and that's how they get a good amount of their income.
How many people are in the parish?
I think there's about 75 to 80 people in the parish, like ours. Yeah, pretty similar.
How do they get all this money?
How do they get all the money? Well, they raised a lot of it through people in the parish who really wanted to see it happen. They also got grants and loans from the diocese, just like we're going to do. They got restoration monies that they applied for. At that time, I was working for a company called Rambush Company, which was a lighting design company, while I was in seminary. And they came out and did a lot of the work pro bono because I worked there. So they did all the lighting design, they did the paint studies, they did all that stuff. But they also did it over a period. It wasn't a period of like a year and a half. They did it over a period of, I guess it took John maybe 10 to 12 years to do all the work. I can't remember. He can tell you better. Yeah. It started the work, let's see, in 1979 or 1980, somewhere around there. And so by 1987, I think they were finished. Maybe a little bit after that. Again, I wasn't there for all of it because I left there in 1982. So they can tell you more about it, although I did for parts of other parts of it when it was happening. Linda, you had a question.
You said how long ago?
Yeah. I can't remember, but certainly John will tell you that the memory is that it took forever. But they had a lot of fundraisers just for the restoration they would work with the June. And most of the money, it didn't cost them a lot of money to do a lot of things they did because they did a lot of it themselves. And Staten Island, this area where we're going, is full of city employees and contractors who work for the city, so a lot of people donated their time. You have a lot of firemen, a lot of police officers, a lot of city workers who work in a lot of these agencies, and this is the type of work that they do when they're at work, and so they donated some of their time to do the work. But also John Covington, the priest at the time, was a very hands-on person, and he did a lot of the work himself also. He's a good artist, great painter. The ladies got together and they actually put all the stenciling on the wall themselves. They got a pattern, a stencil pattern, and somebody came and marked where each one was supposed to be marked, and they painted it all themselves. They since have painted out some of the stenciling that they did. They thought it was overwhelming once they were finished. The inside of the church area is painted about a color of, or was, I haven't been there in a while, the apse part, like where the altar is painted about the same color as Maggie's friend, your cape there. It's a very dark Victorian velvet red.
Oh, wow.
Nice. So it's going to be, you're going to see a real interesting color perspective inside the church also. And we're making good time. We're right at Newark Airport. We're going to go across the exit 13A, and we'll be in Staten Island. They have stained glass windows, yeah, that are original to the period. I think they had a few. That's another thing they did. There were some stained glass windows that were not quite right, that were not the right shade and everything, and then they went and took some of those pieces of glass out and put in the right colors for the right period, stuff like that. Then the other thing that they were able to do, which is one of the things I was talking to Guy about and to the building committee, is that after they did all that work, they were able to get something called restoration insurance, which is different than replacement insurance. So that should anything, all the restoration work that they did, should anything ever happen to the church, should part of it burn down or a crane come in, knock part of it over, as was happening a lot in New York City, the insurance company would have to go back and to restore it the same way that it was done back to the period of 1865. Right now, for instance, at our church, should we have a fire, God forbid, at our church, and the fire department came and broke the windows, the stained glass windows, we would get money for windows, clear windows, not stained glass windows, not the ones from the period that is when the church was built. But if we had restoration insurance, which interestingly enough does not cost any more than replacement insurance, then you could actually have it, they would have to restore it to actually how it looked in 1865, just the way that you can get restoration insurance, yeah. I mean, you can imagine how many restoration places there are that need that sort of insurance. And so it is available, and at no extra cost of replacement insurance.
Why don't we have it?
Well, we don't have a historic church that has been designated as such by in ways that we could prove that it actually, is from that period. We don't know enough about our church. They did a lot of research. The church was originally designed by Richard M. Upjohn, who also designed Trinity Wall Street. So he was a very famous architect. This is one of his little minor masterpieces, and I think you're going to enjoy it very much. It's very small.
The church we're going to.
Yeah. It's very small like ours, although it has a crossing, or much more of a crossing. In other words, when you look at the altar, there are arms on either side that they've built out. But that was not originally there. Again, they built out a little bit, which is part of what we want to do, so you can see the possibilities. They also pull the altar out from the wall, like we did, and they have what I would call a freestanding altar rail. You'll see what I mean when you see it. They came up with a solution that worked very, very well for them. So, here we go. Here we go. We're going into Staten Island. It's very exciting. We're going to cross the bridge first. We have to get off. We have to get off the
I like IKEA.
the turnpike first, but then we'll go across the Goethals Bridge.
We got a lot of
I've been
room
here
back
several
there.
times.
Just a little trivia for you. You know that the Bayonne Bridge was named for Bayonne, New Jersey, which we just passed, and that the Goethals Bridge was named for someone whose name was Goethals. But then the last bridge down here coming into Staten Island is the Outer Bridge crossing, and everybody always thought, oh, because it's the Outer Bridge. But no, that's the name of the family. It was Mr. and Mrs. Outer Bridge.
Really? Outer Bridge.
Yeah, that was their name, Outer Bridge.
So it was the bridge. The Outer Bridge.
Lake Charles.
Yes, they were related to the Lake Charles people, I'm sure. So, the Outer Bridge family was a very prominent family in New York at the period. No, it's one word.
Outer Bridge.
Well, when you see the sign, it might be written as two words because they didn't have enough room. But it is a one. If you see it written in script, in print, in the newspaper, whatever, it's one word. The Verrazzano Narrows Bridge, which is another way we could have come, but we didn't, thank God, because we would not even be there. That area there, right where Wagner College is, overlooking the entrance to the ocean there, the Verrazzano Narrows, which is named for the person who first came through there, the...
Narrows.
No, not the Narrows.
That was a
The Verrazzano, Mr. Verrazzano, who was a Portuguese explorer, was sailing for the Italians, I believe. That is the highest point in the eastern seaboard.
Wow.
So if when you go by there and you look up and you see the cliffs where Wagner College is, and it looks out over the ocean there, that's the highest point in all the eastern United States.
Higher than Newport.
On the seaboard.
The
All
Newport
of the
Bridge.
sea. Yeah. And over here, if you look in the horizon here, along the horizon there, you see absolutely nothing. And that's because this is the famous Staten Island dump. This is where all of the trash from New York City came in. It's now been closed. It's a landfill. And
Is that fish kill?
Fresh kills.
this is where they brought all the stuff from 9/11 and everything in order to do all the staging over here. The furthest part up there, that crest over there that you see is actually, you see how much higher it is than the rest of the land. That's all landfill. That's all New York City dump.
That's where they brought them from 9/11.
That's where they brought all the 9/11 stuff to do the staging. And this area, all these little rivulets here, are called kills, K-I-L-L-S. And so we're coming. The place right before Eltonville, which is where the church is located, is called Great Kills. Made famous recently by a congressman who had an affair with someone in Virginia and got arrested, drunk driving and so forth. He's from Great Kills.
Great.
Also, one of the biggest malls in America is here in Staten Island. And it's one of the first. It was built by Roush Company, who also did one in Baltimore. But they built Columbia, the planned city in Maryland, but they also built the big mall in White Plains, the new mall. Westchester Mall. No. So welcome to Staten Island. We are here. How many people have never been to Staten Island before? Have never been. Okay, so I only have quite a few people here that have never been.
Kelly, were you ever in Staten Island?
No. It's still the best way to see the Statue of Liberty if you have people in from New York City. You just take the ferry across, which I think is, I don't know what it costs anymore, but I think it's still under $1 round trip. You take it across, and it goes right by the ferry, right by the Statue of Liberty. As close as actually the ships that take you out there go, that don't stop there anymore. Any questions about today or about the church in general as we're getting there? No? All right, well, it's about 20 to 10 now. The service starts at 10, and so you're going to see me disappear pretty quickly because I'm supposed to be part of the service. So just make your way to church. There is a restroom in the parish hall, which is next to the church in the parking lot there. You'll see how to get down there. And then make your way to church. Yes, brother, you had a question?
Well, I just wondered, they've only got 3 people singing, but they have the organ, so it's a lot of organ music?
A lot of organ music. They have here's a case where, which is true in many churches, where people will come just to have the right to play on that type of organ. It is a spectacular specimen of its day.